Oh, now I'm ready.
Good morning, everybody. How is everyone? It is yet another Tuesday, and we are back again for the Real HR Show live here on YouTube. I am Brenda Neckvatal, one of your hosts. We'll get our faces on here real quick. There we go. I'm one of them. Yeah, I know, right? Good morning. So we want to welcome you guys. Everybody, how is everyone? Exactly. So there's all these steps that we have to take. One of them is to shut me up on my computer so I can actually hear everybody else.
Technology.
I know, right?
We're fighting it again.
How are you?
I am good. I was about to say it's a gorgeous day here, but I just looked out my window and the sky is getting really dark. So it was gorgeous until about 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's kind of mucky out here right now. I mean, we've got like a whole week of rain planned for the summer. But, it's all good.
It's all good. If you don't get rain, then it gets really depressing. So
yeah, well, I expect to see an arc by the end of the week. Really? My gosh. So my name is Brenda Neckvatal. I am an award-winning HR professional, and with my co-host is Suzanne Lucas, also known as the Evil HR Lady, and author of are you ready for this? Over 1,000 articles on Inc.com.
Have I written 1,000 on Inc?
Yeah. You have. It's great.
And I say I don't have time to write a book. Well, this is why people don't have time to write a book. Apparently, I have been writing it all at Inc.
That's so funny. So today we're going to be talking about purple squirrels, unicorns, and rock stars. Oh my! And really what we're running into, the frustration of finding people in this market. So
it's such a weird market, isn't it?
It's a bizarre one.
It's a bizarre one. And we want to talk a little bit about these terms here, this purple squirrels, which, full confession, was a new term to me this week. And I got it from Reddit, which we all know is, full of truth and life or whatever. I'd heard the term before as a purple unicorn, but someone mentioned there as a purple squirrel. And so we said, well, let's look that up and see what people are saying a purple squirrel is. And it's basically the same thing that I understood a purple unicorn to be, which is the perfect candidate. They have the skills and the experience, and they went to the right schools, and they worked for the right companies, and they're willing to do it at the salary that you have, and they will need no training, and they are non-existent. They are mythical creatures. There's no such thing as a purple squirrel or a purple unicorn. And yet companies are constantly looking for these perfect people out there.
Yeah.
And that really can put us into a situation that makes recruiting a heck of a lot harder than it needs to be. Because you get frustrated when you're trying to find a mythical creature because they just don't exist. And then when you've got your unicorn, your squirrels and unicorns and your rock stars and also your ninjas, these are all this idea of we can just get this perfect person in here and all of our problems will be solved. But it doesn't work that way, does it?
I was going to say, how's that working for you?
It's working great for me because I work alone, but it's not working well for everybody else.
No.
It's just not. It's not. And it's not something that actually helps your business. This is the thing, this idea of if I can just do enough, if I can just, just write my job description in the right way, or just find that right candidate, then all of these things will be fixed. And that's just not how it goes. There just isn't that. And in the meantime, you are wasting time and money and your sanity trying to find this perfect person when you could fill the position within the next couple of weeks if you're willing to take someone who is good enough.
Yeah, or somebody that needs to be a little tuned up, a little educated. But that's one of the challenges that's out there is that, and I see this all the time, especially in small business, is that everybody wants to train and to tune up somebody and upskill people. Problem is that they either don't know how to do it or they don't make the commitment to do it for some limiting self-belief. And likely some of those beliefs out there are real, like don't have enough time. I mean, small businesses don't have training departments. They just don't.
No. And they don't also have a lot of stepping stones,
No, they do not.
If you're getting a job in a Fortune 500 company, you can start out as the junior marketing analyst, and you're with 20 other junior marketing analysts, and there's senior marketing analysts, and there's marketing analyst managers, and then you have the whole market. In a small business, you have maybe one person that does marketing.
Right.
They do the analysis, they do the creative, they do all of that. And it's possible that they're also doing finance at the same time.
Right.
It can really be difficult. So I feel for these people that are like, okay, my person that was doing the marketing and the finance quit. I need to find someone else that has marketing and finance experience. And
there's your unicorn.
And it's hard. It's hard to find someone that has these things. In a big business, it's pretty easy to find someone that has experience in the area that you need because it can be really refined down, a little tiny area. In a small business, man, you wear so many hats.
Yeah, totally agree. And the thing about individuals, so if you look at the area that I'm in, so if you look at Virginia Beach area, which is a great area to be in, we don't have Fortune 100 companies here. The closest one is actually over in Richmond, and that's CarMax. And actually there's another one, Altria, over there. We do have a Wegmans, but we don't have Wegmans corporate here. So, so the opportunity to do big business type work is limited in this area. So you either have to go to where those businesses are, or kind of interesting enough with this current job market, it's likely you can now probably find something remote where it was like the purple squirrel of your dreams to get, right? Is to find a remote position. And now with, what's happening with the virus, which we just did not want to talk about today, but unfortunately we're probably going to bump into it.
No virus. We're going to bump into it. There's no way to not bump into it, man.
I know. But now it's giving us the ability to actually broaden out to different metropolitan markets while we're still in the comfort of our Pinterest offices, right?
Is that what mine is? This is.
No, mine is a Pinterest office.
I'm a Pinterest fail, man.
No, I literally just turned my 10-year-old black bookshelf into a white one over the weekend. So
look at you.
Yeah, that's all right. If I start giggling uncontrollably, it's because of the paint fumes. I can still smell them.
That could make a very different show. Yes. But this is something that actually, like you said, suddenly these jobs that were only available to the purple squirrels are becoming more prevalent because businesses are realizing after they were forced into it that, maybe some things can be done from home. Maybe we don't all need to be together all of the time. And early on in the shutdown, I saw a meme on Facebook that said, who was the driver of your digital transformation? Option A, the CEO. Option B, the COO. Option C, COVID-19. And I loved that because it really did. It really it forced everybody out of their comfort zone and said, if you want your business to survive, there's going to be people that work at home.
Yep. You have to adapt. Yeah. And it's also required people to overcome this, again, self-limiting belief and trust their employees a little bit more that, well, I can't guarantee that they're doing the job if I don't lay eyes on them. Yes, you can, and so that's one of the benefits about working from home is that I wouldn't necessarily say it's job crafting per se, but it gives you the opportunity to take on a new level of ownership for what you do as an employee. And that job crafting is certainly a way to where you could, really enhance your employee experience. And it's something that you can use to brand yourself as an employer of choice. That's actually right now, last week and this week are the topics of my podcast, which drops actually Wednesday, tomorrow. And we've got a wonderful lady from Australia, or she's a New Zealander living in Australia. She's a branding specialist. She's internationally award winner as well. And she's been on the show before as branding yourself as an employee of choice. And now she's working on, we're talking about that. But I rambled and now I almost forgot what I was going to say. And anyway, but it's something that you can actually use. You can use to attract the individuals that have the qualifications, that have the skills, that have the talents, and then have the desire to actually take on working remotely, getting to know a company where they have yet to set foot into it, and be wildly successful. That's the goal.
Yeah, and I think that we can actually do that now. Now, I will say with my own biases, I am someone that has worked from home exclusively for the past 11 years and off and on for 6 years before that. So I'm a huge work from home fan, but I recognize that there are some people and there are some jobs and there are some companies where even though technically you can do it from home, it is better to be in the office. So this is not the be all end all of the universe. I prefer a face-to-face meeting over a Zoom meeting. I do.
Yeah.
And I will do that. So I don't want people to think that I'm arguing here. Oh yeah, now we've learned to work at home. We have to do that. We don't have to, but it definitely opens things up. And it also expands companies' ability to recruit, because before, if everybody had to be in the office every day, you really were limited geographically to whom you could call upon. And now, if you're willing to have someone work from home, it's kind of unlimited. I mean, you got time zone issues, but depending on the job, Brenda and I are 6 hours apart, but somehow we managed to make it work.
Well, it's because we set the expectation and we hold to it.
Right. And that's just, you can do that. And just even hiring someone that lives an hour and a half away and have them come into the office once a week, that still opens up your recruiting possibilities. When you're trying to find the best possible candidate, if you're limited to walking distance around your office, you're really screwed. But as you expand that radius, you can get more and more candidates. But don't let that make you think that these purple squirrels exist, because they still don't. Don't. The perfection doesn't exist. And I see so often when I see a job posting and there will literally be 40 or 50 qualifications for this position. And I'm just like, no.
I wonder what the bait on the end of that hook looks like to get a purple squirrel. But yeah, but in all fairness, not everybody knows how to write everybody knows how to write an effective job ad. Job ads are just out there to, entice people that meet the qualifications and that have interest in your organization to take the next step. That's the whole goal of it. But
people get in this panic that if I don't list every single thing, then I'm not going to get everything that I need. But one of the things that you may not realize, a lot of people don't, is that men and women attack job postings very differently.
Yes.
And men will apply for a job when they meet 60% of the criteria. Women won't apply until they meet 90 to 100% of the criteria.
Oh.
So when you start putting on the non-essential things, you just cut down the number of women who are going to apply. And you may end up hiring somebody that only has 60% of the qualifications, but that person's going to be male guaranteed because the woman with 60% of the qualifications won't even bother to apply. So when you start getting into every little detail, you're really cutting your candidate pool down and making it harder and harder and harder to find someone. And you start screaming about the tight talent market and that unemployment is high. Why can't I find anybody?
Yeah.
And maybe it's you.
Yeah. Well, you just inadvertently frustrated yourself,
Right.
And it's an interesting market right now. I mean, so let's take a little journey back here. So in 2006, 2007, housing market was off the chain, right? Property values and home values were exceptionally high. And everything was just, I get this every time we get into a recession of any kind, either a small one or a larger one. I always get this feeling right before it happens, and that is we've gotten very complacent. We're comfortable. There's not a lot of challenge out there right now. It's just, in general, I just get this sense, right? So that was the time when we had really the doors opened to, I didn't say the doors open, but that is about the time period, 2006, 2007, 2008, was the introduction really to the millennial workforce. And now all of a sudden, we had more jobs open than people to fill them. So it was the first time in a long time that we had seen the market go from an employer's market, which means that we can fill jobs pretty easily because the talent is readily available and looking, to an employee's market, meaning that the employees hold the balance of the power in the job market. Then all of a sudden we had bailouts. We had, we were watching this massive downslide. Stock market was bottoming out, and the market still worked, not as good as it does today, but it was still working back then. And it shifted almost overnight within just a couple of weeks and went from an employee's market to an employer's market because employers were putting hiring freezes on. And now these positions weren't available for all these individuals looking. 12 years later, now we found ourselves, and I remember exactly when it happened. It was in 2018, and it happened in February because I was in the process of hiring for engineers for aerospace company. And it was easy to find engineers. And then all of a sudden it was, oh my gosh, it was like trying to exfoliate your skin with a cheese grater. It was unbelievably painful to try and find a qualified engineer. And it was like that for 3 months. And finally I got my butt handed to me and I'm like, look, this isn't me. This is the market. I've been watching this shift. And when it happens quickly. So now here we are. We've been dealing with, life again got really, really good. 12 years is a long time to work coming out of a recession. It got great. People have the ability the low unemployment. Life was good, right?
Life was good.
comfortable again and got complacent again. And then whammo, all of a sudden, December 31st, December 30th of last year, we learned of this thing called the coronavirus. And within January, I knew that it was already here just by watching what was going on in the markets. I'm one that prepares, and I went to the grocery store. I couldn't find any alcohol, couldn't find any hand sanitizer, couldn't find any allergies, couldn't find any gloves, couldn't find any masks. And I went, it's happening. Got online in January, ordered my supplies from Amazon.com, and got stuff lined up for my family. Then February hit, and it was like, what? And all of a sudden, people start shutting down job ads, and there's some precautionary, and then it hit. And that's when it hit hard in March. Woo. It just it shifted instantaneously within a week. We went from being an employee's market back to an employer's market. But I say all that to get to my actual point, which is it's a split market this time. So part of the market is an employee's choice market. Part of the market is an employer's choice market, which is really interesting.
It's such a weird market right now. And it's also driving division within the country because there's two different groups of people, one of whom is like, yeah, the shutdown kind of sucks, but I'm fine. And the other group that's like, oh my gosh, I need a job and I can't find one. And there's a big split between blue and white collar work because a lot of white collar work can be done from home. Mm-hmm. And that's where everyone went. If you're an auto mechanic, you've got to touch the cars. You've got to be out there doing it. It's a great job, with good pay and all of that. But if no one's driving anymore, their cars don't need repairs, and you need to at your auto body shop, and it just became a very difficult area, and it's made recruiting very weird, as you said, with this split market, because there are still positions that are super hard to find someone for, and then there are positions where, between Walmart and Amazon, since the shutdown in March, they hired almost 500,000 people between the two of them. They just had tons and tons of labor available to them, and they snatched it all up, which is great because it gave jobs to people that needed jobs, but they're not the best of jobs.
Well, they're jobs that support. They're jobs that support the supply chain, and right. that's what our country needed at that time. We needed individuals to help support the job, the supply chain, and so that's what those jobs were. Now they came in a wide variety of flavors. A lot of them were the frontline variety, but frontline variety also requires management, requires IT support. It requires, more surrounding staff to make that all happen. So it's not that the jobs weren't out there. They just had a different season to them.
Right. They did. And I think that's something that's also, and we started talking about this in the beginning, the difference between working for a big company and working for a small company. It's a very, very different job. It's a different way to approach things. With a company like Amazon, it's so large that you're going to be a very narrow focused employee in most cases.
For a little while.
But there's also opportunity for growth and development.
Yes.
Whereas if you get a job at, Bob's house of random stuff, and it's you and Bob and 3 other people, you may have a really fascinating, interesting job because you cover so many different areas and you wear so many hats, but there's nowhere to go because Bob's not dying and that's it. That's as far as the job goes. Whereas if you start at the bottom at a Walmart, or you mentioned you have a Wegmans by you, and Wegmans is the best grocery store in the world. Fight me on that one. And I used to work there, so I actually know a little bit about it. They very much promote from within. That's their huge goal. And so you get a job as a customer care person, whatever they call the cart pushers. Now I don't remember because I don't have a Wegmans by me and it's really sad. But there's nothing to stop you from starting out in that position and ending up in a high level position because there's room for growth. Whereas at the small business, there may never be room for growth, and there's a trade-off.
Complete trade-off. And but that's what everybody has to consider, because you may not necessarily be a purple squirrel or a unicorn or a rock star at the time that gets applied, but you may very well become a rock star within the organization with that extra nurturing and extra growth. And right now it's really difficult for employers to commit to that level, simply because right now, over the last several months, it's all been figuring out, how do we survive? Like, how do we make it through this? My favorite store, one of my favorite stores on the planet, is going out of business, and that's Pier 1. And it's just, to me, it's just such a shame, because I love the ingenuity of it. I love the decor. I love the creativity that happens when the second that you walk in, but they couldn't figure out how to survive.
Yeah, and they certainly are not the only one. A lot of things went down. And hopefully some will come back in different forms, and the owners of these things will try something new. We can all hope for that, but there's been so much change in that world. And that also, again, is going to be impacting recruiting in all areas.
Yeah.
Because we have this glut on the market now of people from specific types of jobs and specific industries that couldn't survive the shutdown. You have a lot of people with the same skill set competing for the remaining jobs. It wasn't a, gosh, we cut employment by 10% across the board, and there's not an equal number of accountants out there looking for jobs as there are people that worked in a small retail or even large retail like Pier 1. Pier 1 was pretty big.
Pier 1 was huge, and other companies too. So if you look at retail, this particular store doesn't come into retail, but IHOP is closing down some of their locations. You've got, matter of fact, yesterday it was announced that 24 Hour Fitness was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. J. Crew is no longer going to be around. J. Crew is an old name in retail. J. Crew got affected by this early on. And, and this isn't the last of them that we're going to see that are winding up shutting things down. Sears and JCPenney's have been, doing that tango to the edge of the cliff from, that cha-cha to the end of the cliff for many, many years. And it's starting to happen for Sears for sure,
Yep. And with that, I can also say, as someone that does not visit the US all of the time, I do see Sears every time I go because it's the entrance to the mall by my mother-in-law's house. And it has gone down over years. It just has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And then you hit this thing and that's it. There's no more. There's no more in it. But it had been going down for a very long
time. It has. It has. But, this environment has accelerated it. And so you've got all this really great talent that's coming out. And so if you are one of those individuals, or if you're that organization that is looking for just an absolute rock star, those guys are out there, but they do need tuning. They do need to be, you have to dial them into your organization. You have to figure out how to spend that time wisely and what the effort and impact is. So if you're bringing in somebody that's a potential superstar and you're not living up to their expectations as an employer, they're going to be gone.
And I think that's such a critical point, because companies say, I want the rock star, I want the ninja, I want whatever, but then they're a terrible place to work. If you are one of these super top level employees, you have your pick of companies. And so if you come to work and it's got bad management or poor systems or a crappy culture, they're not going to stick around. And sometimes companies see that as, I shouldn't invest in my employees because they're just going to leave anyway. But they're leaving because you didn't invest in them, or because you're a terrible manager. And here's a secret: some people should not be managers. And it doesn't mean that you're dumb. It doesn't mean that you're not a good business person. It just means that you shouldn't be a manager. And sometimes you need to recognize that in yourself and say, I'm better in an individual contributor role. And I can contribute a lot more there in a company because I'm not good at managing other people. And that's a hard thing for people to say. But if you're having high turnover, it might be you. And it might be the company. It might be your pay structure. But it's not always the employee's fault. If you treat employees well, if you pay them a market rate, and I'm not even telling you have to pay them above market rate, just if you pay them a market rate and make it a nice place to work. And by a nice place to work, I don't mean you need to have a pool table in the break room and free snacks, although I will never turn down free snacks, which is how I double gin today. I'm never turning down free snacks. But those are the things that you need to make it a good place to work.
Yep.
The management is so much more important than snacks in the break room.
Yeah. And, and people are looking for that opportunity. I mean, look, I think people do become the purple squirrels and they become the rock stars, but it comes with that. It has to be approached from more than one avenue. It comes from that continuous engagement with the employee, and it comes from that continuous support and investment from the employer. And they may not necessarily be a rock star on paper, but what you get out of them, because I may get some criticism for this one by the average Joe who doesn't understand what I mean by this, but your employees are also your return on investment as well. And employees, HR, we tend to we don't necessarily look at ROI in terms of dollars and value sometimes when it comes to the human factor, because that's hard to measure on the human factor, but we do see a return on effort. So when effort is expended, we do see and recognize that it comes back, and that's observable. And so I think if organizations were to understand that, the concept of upskilling, figure out in your strategic plan how training benefits your organization. And if you're in a larger organization, and I've seen this, if you're in a larger organization that has a whole training and education department where you've got accessible online training, and if you're a unit, site manager, just department manager or leader or whatever, and you're not involving your employees in that gold mine of a database, or if there's nothing in there that, like, if you want to get somebody's skill level up to the next tick, if you're not finding those opportunities to get them engaged in it, then your employee issues are you can thank yourself for that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be invested in your employees. And I like what you said about the ROI, because it's a return on investment, but what investment are you making?
Right.
And it's not just the hiring. It's not just getting somebody on board and then being like, okay, here's your desk. See ya. Which a lot of people do. I have had many jobs where that's your training. Like, here's your desk, here's your log on. All right.
Good luck.
Good luck. And I figured it out, but gosh, wouldn't it have been easier? Someone showed me something. And of course, there are some things that you do get shown. Like, we have no problem providing training for a particular computer system. Like, companies are really good at that, Oh, okay, you don't know how to use our weird 1970s green screen HRIS. We'll send you to training for that. Got that. But other kinds of things, the more soft skills, they don't necessarily support. And you're kind of expected to just have those on your own. But if we can invest in those things, you can really create great employees. And like I said, if you're investing in your employees, if you're paying them a market rate, and if you're a good place to work, they're not going to leave you in droves.
No.
Of course, some will leave. Most people don't want to stay with the same company forever. But I can also tell you from experience that people will follow a good boss to the ends of the earth.
Yep.
There are people that I have worked for in the past that if I'm ever in the same town as them and they called me up and said, hey, Suzanne, do you want a job? I'd be like, I really love what I'm doing right now, but I really love working for you. So I'm going to come in and talk to you about it. Because they were that good of bosses. I've been blessed in my life to have some amazing bosses. I have some other bosses former bosses that could call up and offer me a lot of money. And I would say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. But I'm so happy with what I'm doing. And, best of luck to you, because I'd rather stick pins in my eyes than work for these people again, even if they're offering more money than I'm making now.
Yeah.
A good boss is worth her weight in gold.
Yep.
And people will stay for that. People don't leave jobs on whims. They leave because it's the least painful option, because job hunting stinks. There's nothing about it.
It does. And, individuals with that level of self-efficacy are not afraid to go out into a stinky job market like that, right? They just aren't. And, you called it out a little while ago, and you posed the questions like, so what if they leave? Well, the common moniker behind that is like, well, what if they stay?
Right.
And, if you don't beef up your employees, what if I do and then they go somewhere else? They take all of that money that I spent and all of that, education that I got them, and they go somewhere else. Well, you know what? That's okay, because what you're missing is looking at what they contributed and how your business benefited at that moment. You're not, that's a limiting belief right there, that an employee is so valuable that you can't let them go, because I promise you there's somebody else that will be able to do the job. The question is, where are they, and how much is it going to cost to get them in through the door? Now, I'll give you an example where I want to go with this for a second. So a while ago, I was doing some recruiting for a federal contractor. It was a highly niche contract. It was a highly niche position. There was only one person on LinkedIn in the Quad State area that met the criteria and the qualifications, and the guy didn't want to come on board. And that position, not only could the prime not fill it, the sub couldn't fill it, and it just stayed vacant. I don't even know if it's still filled or not, or if it's still vacant or not. But it was such a difficult position, and the company either wouldn't release the finances to look for somebody else in another market to where that position was likely, there was likely talent there or not, or they just wanted to stay regionally and locally for whatever reason, right? I guarantee it involved money.
Sure.
But, you know, that's one thing, right? There are some of those niche positions, but that's the wild exception to the rule. It is not the norm. It really isn't. And if you look at the average employee, the average position in a company, you will find that, more than likely you'll be able to find the right talent to fill a position. You just have to move beyond your own walls of thinking on it.
And sometimes you need to reevaluate the position and exactly what you do need and what you don't need. Because sometimes our ideas of what we need are based on the person who held the position before and not necessarily what the company needs now. Sometimes we try to fill a position by finding a clone of the previous employee. And that really restricts you when you're recruiting. If you're like, well, you know, Jane could do this, 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 and this, and we need a Jane. And you have to stop and evaluate. Jane did a good job, but is exactly what she did what we need for going forward? And it's always a good time to make changes when you're hiring someone new, because it's a lot easier to bring in someone new and train them than to get your old employee to change what they're doing. I'm not saying that people won't change, they do all the time, but sometimes it can be much more difficult to approach it that way. So there's something you can look for. And the other thing, which I want to just touch back on a little bit, when you said about when people go on, and that's okay. One of the things that I want to point out is a few minutes ago, I was praising, and I'll continue to praise Wegmans. You know how long it's been since I worked there? I quit in 2001. So it has been 19 years since I worked there. And I mean, because they're the best, but everybody that goes into one of their stores can say this is great, but I've worked behind the scenes and I know their business philosophy. And the people running it today were working there when I was there, and I'm pretty sure they didn't change their philosophy. You have me who left, and I left for reasons of I wanted to move up in my career, and to move up there meant going into the store, and I didn't want to work nights and weekends. That's it. I didn't want to work nights and weekends. That was necessary to progress at Wegmans, how it should be. That's why I left. It wasn't because of a bad boss. It was just I didn't want to work nights and weekends, and I wanted to get promoted. I'm still speaking very positively about this company. You want that from your former employees. You don't want them being like, oh my gosh, oh, I used to work for, this company. Oh, that's not what you want from your former employees. You want people that speak positively about you, because they continue to do marketing for you. And it can either be positive marketing or negative marketing. I mean, and the same thing comes about when the way you treat job candidates. If you treat candidates terribly, they're going to walk out with a bad feeling about you. And the thing is about job candidates is that ones that you do not hire can become in the future people that may want to hire you, people that may want to hire your company as a vendor. And if you treat the job candidate poorly, and then your company is now pitching them at a different company for some service you're going to offer, they're going to be like, no, I interviewed this company. They treated me like crap. And so many things to come back and bite you on that. So many opportunities.
Yeah, and if you're an HR person listening to this, right? Because this is a great message for Apex leaders, CEOs. But if you're an HR person that is listening to this, and you see that there's like this gap that exists between, in the conversation between you and the leadership of your company, be it somebody in the C-suite or managers or whatever, have this conversation with them. Just say, we want to make sure that when people leave this organization, that they're not, if they may be, out of mind, out of sight, or out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. They're not in our line of vision. They're no longer really a thought on our brain. We are a thought on theirs. So how is their exit looking? What is their exit going to look like? How are they going to feel about us at the end of the day? You know, you have great memories of working for Wegmans. I have great memories of working for CarMax, even though, you know, my exit was part of a reduction in force, and that's fine. You know, I still have to this day, my favorite job I ever held was at ADP. My last two jobs, I don't have the warm and fuzzy for, even though, you know, I paid attention and I can see that they've made adjustments now. I was also the first real, true, honest HR person in those roles, and that comes with, you know, a set of challenges as well. So, you know, I don't necessarily have the warm and fuzzy for those organizations, but yet I also know not to go running around smacking, you know, saying what it is that's on my mind about them. You know, I know better, you know, but not everybody's like that.
Not everybody's like that. No,
No.
and you see it in the Yelp reviews, in the Glassdoor reviews, and you don't want that. I'll tell you what, candidates look at that stuff. And
Yes.
when you're having trouble recruiting, if you have a whole bunch of bad Glassdoor reviews, even if you disagree with them, right? Even if you know that the person who wrote that was crazy pants and they were never a good employee, it's still going to impact. And I, as a candidate, if I'm coming in for an interview and you've got these terrible Glassdoor reviews, I'm going to ask you about them. I'm going to ask you. And I'm going to say, what are you doing to ensure that this doesn't happen again? And you better have an answer for that. And you need to make changes. People will dismiss the one crazy pants review.
That one-off.
The one-off. But when you get 5 and 6 and 7 written coherently, you know, not all caps and, you know, screaming or whatever, but coherent things like, this was a serious problem. You know, our pay was a serious problem. And, you know, there was no chance for promotions, or promotions were done based on friendships and not based on skill. Your job candidates take those things seriously, and especially your job candidates that have more options. So when we're getting back down to our search for the purple squirrel, those people, they're not coming to you because they need you.
Yeah.
You need them.
Yeah.
And they also, you can't trick those people into staying with you. You know, this is something that just boggles my mind every time I see it, that someone will get a new job and they will write me saying, you know, I started this job 3 months ago. It is completely different than what they promised me. And I'm like, why? Why would you lie to somebody to get them in the door? Be honest and get someone that wants that job. And I see that happening with people who have paid, who the companies have paid the relocation. And the reason why they're writing me is they're saying, is there any way I can get out of this relocation contract where I'm going to have to repay it if I don't stay for 2 years? And the answer is no. Having the job not meet your expectations isn't enough to get out of it. But why would you as a company invest the $50,000 or more to move someone and not be honest with them about the job and what it entails? And to be honest, my very favorite job interview I ever had was she turned out to be my boss eventually, the hiring manager. You know, we did the standard, this, that, you know, tell me about this. How did, you know, can you tell me about a time when? And then she said, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with our department. And she gave me a list. And I left that interview going, no way in hell will I work for this company. And then I started to think about it. And they called and made me an offer, and I turned it down. And because no way am I going to work for this company. And they called me back a few days later and said, did it. And the position I really wanted, and I had to evaluate, are these things I'm willing to work with? And I decided, yes, I am. I'm willing to handle those things for this job that I really want. And I went into that job with my eyes wide open. I knew what the problems were. I knew the challenges. I stayed with that company for 9 years. For 9 years.
Yep.
And she did scare me off initially. But when I went in, you know, I was under no illusions. So many hiring managers want you to be under the illusion that everything is perfect. I mean, how many companies out there advertise, we have zero flexibility, we will write you up if you clock in at 8:02. If you ask for vacation, we will not approve it. And it's all done by seniority. You are the newest person. It will be 16 years before you get to take a vacation the time when your kids are out of school. You will never go to your mother's house for Christmas ever again. No one says that, but so many companies do that. And they're like, oh, we are flexible. And by flexible, meaning that you can clock in between 7:57 and 7:59. That's their definition of flexible. But they don't tell you that in the interview.
Yeah, we're flexible on our terms, not yours.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't take you into consideration. And yeah, I mean, but there is, I mean, that, you know, honestly, and I don't mean to cut you off because we got one more point to make before we wrap it up, because this hour went by quick, is that, well, go ahead, Fish, make your point.
I don't remember my point. Simply, you've got to be honest to get the right people. Be honest.
Yeah, and it's a struggle because you're up against a couple of dynamics. You're up against companies are up against what you do for one, you do for all, right? So flexibility may not necessarily be there in certain areas because we're dealing with precedents, right? And we have to be careful of the precedents that we set in the company. That's one dynamic. Then the other dynamic is that in the absence of information, people make stuff up. So where a company is being flexible in an area that they would not normally be flexible in, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person that is being impacted by that buys into the fact that the company is being flexible. So it's not just one-sided. It's a dynamic, and the dynamic is challenging.
Absolutely. And there's also many cases in which the recruiter says, look, here's the flexibility, and you believe the recruiter, you don't ask the hiring manager, but the hiring manager rules with, you know, an iron fist, and the company policy is officially one thing, but the department is run another way, and that all happens too. And you see stupid advice. This was one of the advice given in, I don't remember the website. It was Forbes, I think, but don't quote me. But they have this leadership council. Yeah, it's Forbes. They have the leadership council where people pay to give advice instead of being paid to give it. And it was like, never ask about benefits or flexibility in a job interview. And I'm like, if you're scared of somebody asking you that, maybe you should evaluate your department and how you run it.
Yeah, there's a little challenger. So there's one last point that I want to talk about, and that is, and we only have a short period of time to do this, about another 5 minutes, but that is actually talking to the candidates who believe they are the purple squirrels, the unicorns, and the rock stars. And I will wrap this up with a story. And it's okay to not take these people on, and be mindful that they do exist, right? And be very clear. So years ago, I was recruiting for an internship program, and it was in aerospace, and we were looking for engineering interns. And I'll never forget this one. So at the end of this, I'm involved in this interview, and I'm listening to this guy, and everything he talked about, my questions unilaterally are all about teamwork. How do tell me about a time when you as your team went above and beyond. Everything is involving teamwork. It's very rarely the individual. In certain cases, there's some individual things that I do ask, but I usually take those as probing questions, right? So everything you talked about was I. And I started thinking about 30 questions into this. I'm like, oh my gosh, he reminds me of Dr. Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. And then at the end, I asked the big Pumbaa question is, tell me about a time when you guys went above and beyond as a group, as a team to achieve, an outcome. And it was I. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I asked him, I finally point blank asked him, I said, so let me ask you one last question. Because this is where I went in a probing question after his answer. And I said, what do you see is the greatest opportunity for you to come and attend this particular internship? And he, kid you not, he ended it with, well, because everybody would get the value of working with me. And I went, oh my God, it's Dr. Sheldon Cooper. And, those people are out there, and I'm just like, man, bless him. Whoever picks him up is just, I hope he contributes to the trip to Mars, because, in his brain and with no experience whatsoever, he is, yeah.
He's something.
And I wish him the best of luck. But and the first thing that when I was talking to the COO about this, and he goes, why wouldn't we want him? And I said, because he is going to cause more people issues than we have right now and that we want. I said, this guy is going to be on the outside. They're not going to, even engineers are not going to wrap their arms around this guy. I said, this is a problem, waiting to happen. Why would we do that?
Especially for an intern position.
That's right. Then all of a sudden he's going to believe that he can actually do your job.
Yeah.
It's not going to go over very well, I promise you. All right. So
that's not how I have had people ask for salaries for more than my boss was making to work under me. I'm like, no.
Not gonna happen.
And it was, someone straight out of school, like, here we go, we should be making, and we're like, no.
All right, guys. So listen, welcome to join us every Tuesday at 9 a.m. We stream live. We're here every Tuesday like clockwork. Suzanne is in Switzerland, and I'm here in Virginia Beach. You can easily find us on our websites. But before we really get into that stuff, Suzanne, why don't you talk about the group that you have that on Facebook, and then we can go ahead and just wrap it up.
So if you want to find me on Facebook, you can find the Evil HR Lady group, and it's a fantastic group for HR people and people who are interested in having good workplace experiences. Come join us. You can ask questions, you can answer questions, and it's a really helpful and supportive group.
Yeah. And then I have what's a group on Facebook as well called the Next Gen Women in HR. And it's a group of, a lot of them are aspiring HR professionals. They're individuals that are working through not only understanding the body of HR, but understanding how to do the job. We've got 3 things that we're tackling right now, and that is not to have, how do you find time to do everything that you want to do? They simply don't know what to do as part of the job. And then also talking about how do you get enough support from the company in order to perform the job. So it goes beyond the body of HR. They're an awesome group of people. I really enjoy hanging out with them. We're getting more interactive. It's only been around since January 6th, so we're barely 7 months old. We just had our 6-month birthday, so it's growing and it's climbing, which is going to be absolutely awesome. Cannot wait. And then you guys can find us on social media. We're flashing that information up at any point in time. But we really appreciate you guys being here. This is a lot of fun. This is our 9th episode.
My goodness, look at us. 9 episodes.
9 episodes. And so we're easily and readily found now more and more.
We're easy to find. Brenda's easy to find as long as you spell her last name right. Then she's easy to find.
You don't even have to say it right. You just have to spell it right. So
it's spelled like it sounds. That's my hope. But I'm somehow related to George Lucas, and I'm going to get his money. But
good luck with that.
Yeah, well, girls got a dream, right?
That's right. So, folks, we really appreciate you joining us in today. Thank you so very much. We look forward to seeing you guys next week at the same time, and have an awesome one.
Have a great week. We'll see you next week.